Ni hao.
One of my lights is out. One of my brand new lights is dead already. I used it twice to shoot 2 videos, and it's dead. So now I only have one light coming from that direction. So we're doing great. So back a couple years back, I was trying to come up with a historical fantasy world that I could put together. And prior to my 5th book, I was really heavy into like pure fantasy. I would have like historical allusions and like, references from different periods in history that I found interesting, but for the most part, a lot of my writing was solely based in fantasy. So when I went and tried to make a like real historical magic system, because I love my magic systems, I wanted to come up with one for every single like nation / culture that I would end up including in the book. And it was heavily based on the Silk Road. So obviously, major player in that is China. Main character was Chinese. I'm Chinese. I wanted to throw in some martial arts stuff in there. So naturally, I wanted to make a martial arts based magic system based on Chinese folklore. I am not the first person to have done this. Far from it, in fact. Unless you've been completely avoiding any sort of media with Asian influence, you will know what martial arts magic systems typically look like. In fiction that comes out of China, it's a lot of, if you meditate for like 50 years, man, you'll become immortal. I swear, trust me, bro. Or it's some kind of like secret martial arts manual or, stuff like that. But a lot of the magic that you see in genres like ciencia, which is more fantasy than your average like historical work, which is normally wuxia, which is like history with a little bit of myth and folklore involved, and also people can do like batshit crazy stuff, but not as batshit crazy as ciencia. And that's where you have people fucking shooting fireballs out of your hands and shit. You especially see that sort of thing a lot in anime. Anime is probably the thing that a given person is going to know best in terms of what I'm about to discuss here, and that is qi, or chi, or ki, or whatever the fuck. The correct Chinese pronunciation is qi. It is the Q sound, I know, is fucky in Chinese, but it's like try to find like a middle ground between like the TS, like tss, and tsunami or tsundere. Ugh. And like a CH. It's somewhere between there. It's like T, T. And T is, well, the way most people understand it is as like life energy and shit involved in like Taoist, Buddhist, and like general East Asian philosophy and mythology and folklore, where it's like the Force, basically, is the best way to describe the modern interpretation of it. However, that's not a wrong interpretation, but it's also really, really far from right. So while I was constructing this system, and I eventually used it in several other works, I realized that qi is not just an East Asia thing. It is an East Asian martial arts thing. And shocker, most people in East Asia, especially the writers, are not martial artists. Frankly, there's a large amount of separation and dissociation between a martial artist and a writer. Now, granted, there is a weird population specifically for people who are writers, but also martial artists. J.C. Kang, Wesley Chu. Yeah, there are a lot of whoever wrote Combat Codes, that guy. There's a lot of separation there. And I feel like I should, I don't know. I don't want to act like this is some kind of crusade or something, but it's kind of fucking annoying to see even people from the culture that qi comes from fuck up qi and kind of put a barrier there of like, it is different from magic. Qi is not just magic for Asian people. It is complete. There is like Asian magic and shamanism and stuff. That's its own thing away from qi. And I feel like we should try and like separate those two a little more, because if you look at qi and how it works and kind of how its ideas apply to the real world and real martial arts, it's a lot more interesting than fucking, oh, fireball. My fucking mic died yesterday. My mic died when I recorded the "you should subscribe" part, so that's what I'm doing now. You should subscribe because not enough people are. There's never enough. Anyway, I do like weird history, philosophy, world building, writing, whatever the fuck shit here. If you like the video, do the like, comment. If you're not a weeb McDojoist or BJJ bro, and yeah, hit the algorithm buttons, please. Be real cash money of you. My name is Alexander, that one kid from your English class.
Oh, absolutely. And I do believe there is something to be said about this sort of, how do I put this? Willing ignorance, right? This sort of duality between that consciousness of being aware in such.
And today, I'm just going to talk about Qi and why it kind of pisses me off that everyone does it wrong. Also, for all of you martial arts experts out there, i.e. the ones who will inevitably feel the need to make one of three types of comments. You get the people who either run a McDojo or who have been scammed by a McDojo, and those are the people who are like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about with Qi. I've seen my master use it in real combat situations. I've taken Aikido for 20 years, and if I ever met you on the street, I could beat the shit out of you. To those people, I say, try. The second kind of person are the exact opposite of the people who've been scammed by McDojo, and those are BJJ bros, or people who take an equivalent, like, functional, practical martial art. These are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, your Judo people, your Krav Maga, your Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing. Yeah, to all you people who inevitably are going to say, oh, traditional martial arts is full of shit and is so completely irrelevant. I could beat the shit out of you if I ever came across you on the street. I don't doubt that, but also I don't give a shit. This is not about who could beat up who. Also, maybe try looking into some traditional martial arts because frankly, you're basic. All right? You're basic. You're fucking Muay Thai, kickboxing, judo, and jiu-jitsu. Those are the only four things you can do. Those are the only four things you can take to be effective. You're fucking boring, all right? I'm going to say it. MMA is kind of boring. I would prefer it if MMA included fighters with a little more spice to them. I know that there's some stylistic variation within the styles that are valid in BJJ, but I mean, come on. Some of the old Chinese stuff and some of the old, like, Korean and Japanese stuff is fucking badass, man. I don't care if it's not effective. It looks fucking cool. Watch a wushu competition. It's badass. And then we have the third kind of people, which are weebs. If you are not a martial artist and you think you know more than me or any given martial artist about martial arts, which this is a martial arts specific thing, I highly recommend you keep that to yourself at the risk of sounding like a moron. Now that extensive disclaimer is out of the way, we can get into stuff. I did all that because for those of you who aren't affiliated with the martial arts world, the martial arts world is probably one of the most toxic, I don't know if I should call it a fan base, but they're on like K-pop levels of toxic, all right? Just like slightly less cringe because it's about fighting and fighting is cool. So obviously modern depictions of Qi are stuff that you get in like fighting games like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, or like stuff in Dragon Ball is one of the most well-known depictions of Qi in modern media, and it's basically just depicted as like life energy, kind of like the force that you gotta charge up through training, meditation, or screaming really loud, and then you can do stuff like nuke a planet with it. So yeah, not very realistic. And this is the kind of depiction where I want to draw a line between Qi and magic. Qi is not magic. It's not the force. It doesn't, even in like historical and mythological depictions, Qi does not give you stuff like fucking telekinesis or like pyrokinetic abilities. Qi lets you do stuff that humans can do normally, but like at like 12. So if you jump, you can jump over mountains, which is basically flying, but not really. If you punch someone, you can shatter every bone in their body. But usually it does not involve fire being created out of that, or like raising the dead or some shit, or doing something to someone from far away with telekinesis. That is magic bullshit. All right, Qi is martial arts bullshit, so there's some limits on that. And because Qi is so intertwined with Asian magic traditions and whatnot, it does kind of a disservice to both of them because they get muddled, right? There's plenty of like wacky bullshit going on in like Asian folklore magic and shit, right? You got those fucking Taoist charms, you got shamanism, which is plenty wacky on its own. Yeah, you got plenty of stuff to work with. If any of you are doing a world building project or anything like that, I highly suggest you check those out before investigating Qi. Speaking of world building, D&D, Qi is both used right and used wrong. It is used right in that Qi in most tabletop role-playing games like D&D, you end up with powers that mainly channel into augmenting your martial abilities, which is sort of what Qi is supposed to do. And mechanically, the whole Qi points thing kind of makes sense, but it kind of muddles what the source of Qi is and what it actually is, which I will get to soon, after we go over the historical depictions.
Ming Dynasty pussy got me acting unwise.
Even in history, people kind of get confused about what Qi is. Specifically because there's this thing called Qigong, which means Qi work. I guess it's the same character used in Kung Fu. So you have a lot of different types of Qigong. The one you're most used to hearing about is martial Qigong. That's stuff you do with Tai Chi, just doing stuff with your body to try and like cultivate Qi, more or less. That can be meditation. I think meditation applies to kind of all types of Qigong, but generally it's more stuff to do with your body to improve your health. However, there is also medicinal Qigong. There is spiritual Qigong. There's all these different kinds of Qigong, and all the non-martial types of Qigong, I'm pretty sure, aren't really sure about what Qi is. Because you get all this weird shit when it intersects with, when all the non-martial versions intersects with something called internal alchemy from Taoism, and then you wind up with this wacky bullshit of like, oh yeah, you can power up your Qi by taking a pill, or you can use your Qi to like shift around your organs and whatever the fuck. And I'm sitting there looking at some of these manuscripts like, what? Now, if you're going under the assumption that Qi is a magical force of life energy, this makes sense, right? It's kind of similar to, it's kind of similar to like favor with a god. It's not necessarily bound by rules, because it's magic, is what it is. That kind of Qi is magic. But that kind of Qi that is magic does not exist at all. That kind of Qi is far more divorced from reality than what I consider to be martial Qigong. And I've been like dangling this thing of like what real Qigong is in front of you for a while now. In simple terms, one of my favorite ways to describe Qigong, or Qi in general, was said by Ranton, who is the German-Chinese game reviewer who studied at Shaolin for a while. I never studied at Shaolin. I went to the Shaolin once when I was 12 years old, and that was it. So I'm pretty sure that he knows a little more about it than I do, but most of the stuff you hear about Qi is basically just magical mumbo-jumbo. However, according to Ranton, someone at the Shaolin Temple told him that Qi is just controlling your breathing.
Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. I knew sooner or later we're gonna have one of those. The psychic chi manipulation. It's so cringe. I don't know how anyone can fall for this. During my 3 years at Shaolin, I've never met anyone who talks about this stuff or pretends that this is real. Still to this day, I'm wondering if these videos are just pranks that are just taken out of context maybe. There's this thing in China called Qi, and it's probably one of the most misunderstood things, I think. Because when I went to China, Shaolin was very mystical, right? It still is to a lot of people. And Qi is this energy that's floating through the sky. Even a lot of monks at the temple use more esoteric explanations of what it is or supposed to be. Until I met one monk who kind of explained it to me in very simple terms. He just told me Qigong is just controlling your breathing, which by the way sounds easy, but it's incredibly difficult. Mastering your breathing during training, focusing on your breathing, I can't do it.
That's it. That said, it is a lot harder to do that than it sounds. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it that could spiral into these stories about like supernatural powers and magic and shit. I want for people to experiment a little more with a type of qi that is closer to what it is in reality, which is just controlling your breathing. Now, in reality, when you fight, controlling your breathing does a lot for you. It helps you. Controlling your breathing allows you to control your heart rate, and a lot of controlling your heart rate and your respiratory system goes into a lot, basically makes up most of what you are able to do to control your fear and your panic while you are fighting, allowing you to stay calm and think clearly, which is hugely powerful. Another thing, which I've never heard of someone who could do this on command. I don't think this is something someone could do on command. Who knows? It might be a thing that someone could do. Basically, because oxygen is fuel for all your cells, taking in more oxygen by controlling your breathing is going to allow you to hit harder, hit faster, and take hits. So the act of breathing and everything from the inhale to the exhale can be incorporated into how you hit something. Now, granted, I don't think you could do this in a real fight. I don't even know if it's possible for someone to do that to a significant degree, but it's certainly something that you feel when you're practicing, especially when you do stuff like fashion, which is sort of the term for like karate kiap, or is that the Korean word? Basically yelling when you hit something. Because if you hit a target just like that, or any way you want to punch, just hitting the target doesn't feel nearly as strong as when you yell when you do it. I'm not going to do it here because it's like 2 a.m. for me right now, and there are people asleep in my house. If any of you took like Taekwondo or karate or anything like that, you know that like it feels good to yell, right? As long as you have like the proper aggression for it. If you have a little pussy yell, little fucking nah, it probably feels like shit. I wonder why. But yeah, that sort of controlling all the stuff that comes out of controlling your breathing is what qi is, essentially. And that, I think, is quintessentially what has been lost by muddling qi with all this magic stuff. Is that it's not about martial arts anymore, it's about magic. But I think there's a lot of potential in the idea that qi is about martial arts and biology and the human body. Now, granted, it's not necessarily purely scientific stuff around biology. It's sort of like how alchemy is sort of like chemistry with a little bit of magic sprinkled into it, Qi is biology and anatomy with a little bit of magic sprinkled into it.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
So I eventually ended up with 2 different kinds of systems for qi that I think are pretty decent. And if you want to steal these ideas, feel free. I encourage you to. For the historical fantasy that I mentioned earlier in this video, I incorporated qi a little bit with Wu Xing Quan. Are those even the right tones? Wu Xing Quan, which means 5 elements fist. I've never taken any sort of 5 elements fist. I've never seen someone do it, and it sounds kind of like bullshit, but it is martial arts based on 5 elements philosophy, which basically has 5 elements of fire, water, earth, metal, and wood. And they all do stuff to each other, and they do stuff back to each other, and they have all the elements have these different relationships, so they have different strengths and weaknesses against one another. It's really interesting. Look it up. The Wikipedia page is surprisingly detailed. For every element, you have a style of martial art. And for me, that was the way they describe the martial arts on the websites for the schools that teach this style. I'm like, I really feel like there isn't a lot of variation here, so I basically just took each element and took a style of traditional Chinese martial art and went like, metal style, you are Wing Chun, because metal is fast. For some reason, I don't know why. Fire, I pulled an avatar, right? Where I take an element, I take a traditional martial art, smash them together, boom. And each of these elements had basically 10 different forms that the individual practitioner could use. In this case, it's actually less of a breathing thing and more of a style thing. Let's say you do water style. You would say, I added in the anime thing where you call out your attack, which works a lot better in Chinese, at least probably Japanese too, than it does in English, because in Chinese, you know how there are like these long fucking names for like titles and shit of mythological people? Like Nezha is called the Third Lotus Prince. That's kind of a mouthy title, right? But in Chinese, it's 3 syllables, which isn't that much less than the English version, but it's still a noticeable difference. Another example is the Monkey King's title. You know the Monkey King, Sun Kong, Son Goku, if you're a fucking weeb. Qi Tian Da Sheng, which means great sage equal to heaven. That's kind of a mouthy title, right? But Qi Tian Da Sheng, you can say that pretty quick, pretty snappy. So my philosophy was, okay, let's let them call out their attacks, because, you know, in Chinese, that kind of makes a little more sense than it does in English. Also, it's fun, all right? It's just fun. So each practitioner has 10 different forms. Well, no, they have 20 forms, but they have 10 forms, male version of the martial art, and 10 different versions that are part of the female version of the martial art. And this goes into a bunch of Taoist stuff, but basically practical physical martial arts, or stuff that's like very movement oriented, that's fast, hard, strong, like Hung Gar, is considered male external fighting systems. Stuff like Taiji or Bagua is a very like flowy, reserved style that is considered female/internal style. And this goes into a bunch of stuff with like yin yang, whatever. It's a long story. But each practitioner has 10 male forms, 10 female forms. And let's say your water style. And your first form, you would say drilling fist, because I gave each of the elements a different name aside from just the element. Okay, there's too much stuff here, okay? I'll just leave it as an Easter egg for you to find. But you say drilling fist first form, scorching geyser, and you punch. But this isn't just a normal punch, right? Because it's powered by qi. So the rotational force of when you punch, when it hits its target, the force will keep going. It'll project out of your fist into your opponent's body or whatever else it is you hit. It'll just add like 10 times as much force, and then a bunch of centripetal force as well, to just make someone go spinning like a fucking football. And it's kind of funny. And that would be an example of a male form. A female form might be something, let's say your metal style. And for the female forms, they're based on the animals that each of the elements are represented by. You say white tiger, third form. I actually forget what the name is for the third form. Something with swords. But this is where you get your magic stuff. And you do shit far away from your body. Because I think the third form lets you reshape metal around you into whatever else you want it to be. So you can make a weapon, make a sword, something like that. So I don't use the female form as much as I use the male forms, because the female forms are kind of, I have to use them sparingly because I don't want to use something that breaks the power system. It's a very tenuous balance to hold. But that's the system I made for my 5th book, which I think worked out pretty well, especially since it kind of let the humans of the book go up against gods without immediately dying, because the whole premise of that book is that Baal Shaman, the god of thunder of the Canaanites, who stars in the Bible, and is also an anime girl now, unfortunately, got crammed into a little jar by King Solomon, turned into a djinn, then got released around the Abbasid Revolution, and was like, this whole Abrahamic covenant thing is bullshit. I'm going to kill every Christian, Muslim, and Jew on the planet, and maybe a little more. And then this Chinese merchant who has nothing to do with any of this gets caught in the middle of it, and he's like, I really don't want to be here. I want to go home. But a different god is like, oh, you'd be funny as a champion. So picks him, and is like, okay, now you have to go kill a god. I think it's one of my better ones. But my second, I took this system, again, for another book, and then I retooled it a little bit to be more oriented around the whole breath thing. You know, I mentioned this book before, I think, but this one I finished very recently. The pitch is a Chinese magician is exiled from his magician's circle because his brother's a dick. So he and a bunch of other exiles from other magician circles join forces to hunt down the lost tomb of Alexander the Great in a sort of Uncharted / Indiana Jones Da Vinci Code style treasure hunt, plus a bunch of urban fantasy stuff, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite books that I've written so far. In fact, the character dresses a lot like, he's got one of these Mandarin jackets that are like modern but old at the same time. Because I don't know, I found this jacket and I thought, this is dope. This is really dope. But in that book, Qi is much more of a breathing in thing. Wu Xing Chun is still applied, so you still have your 5 elements fist. However, 5 elements fist is not, there are no like specific forms. 5 elements fist is based on certain martial arts. So I take a style of martial art, give it an element that fits, and that's what it is. However, in order to make that form of Qi work, you have to breathe. You have to take a cultivating breath, which is where you stop for a second and take like a 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out breath. I am pissed. I have like 10 minutes of recording that just fucking is silent because for some reason this little shit of a mic fucking turned off in the middle of my recording. So now I have to be here to record it again, which is why you get pajama bottoms and hoodie and fucking greasy ass hair, because it's like 2 a.m. Fuck, what was I? Yeah, okay. Second system. I gave the pitch already. It's a breathing technique. Each element of Wu Xing Chun gets its own martial arts style. The way in which the, I guess, supernatural bit manifests is each Wu Xing Chun style or enhances a certain type of physical ability. So, for example, let's take metal style. Metal style is fast. It is really fast. It is Wing Chun.
Wing Chun, aka how to rape in Japanese under 5 seconds.
That's which Wing Chun. Looks real good. It's not the most effective thing in the world, but it's one of my favorites. It's good if you like augment it onto something and gives you a little stylistic edge. I heard a noise. Ah, fuck! I forgot to turn my light on. Okay. Each Wu Xing Chun style takes a physical ability and enhances it. Metal style, fast. Wing Chun looks good. It's not the most effective thing in the world, but you can add it as spice to your fighting style. But metal style, 5 elements fist, allows the user to fucking zoom, like go real fucking fast everywhere. You can, if you need to like get from point A to point B in like a millisecond, metal style. If you need to hail a flurry of blows into your opponent until you give them a heart attack, which if you hit them enough times, eventually you'll hit them in the right place to give you a heart attack, metal style. You want to keep up with a fucking bullet, metal style. On the other hand, fire style enhances explosive strength. Fire style in this case is Hungar, though in Avatar, Hungar is the earth element. But I think, at least in the way I want to do fire here, especially for explosive strength, Hungar is more fitting than Northern Shaolin. And if you wanna fucking hit someone hard enough to fucking blast them like 20 feet back or something, you do fire style. If you're crushed under some kind of debris or rock and you need to just get like one big shove to just push it off, fire style. Wood style is Shuaijiao, which Shuaijiao is just jujitsu / judo, but Chinese. And wood style is all about grappling and stuff and flexibility. So if you need to like contortionist yourself into it fucking turned off again. Fuck. Okay. I charged it. Fuck, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so wood style. Wood style is if you wanna like contortionist your way into like a box or through a vent or something, you use wood style. If you wanna get out of a lock or get someone into a lock, you use wood style. And all these styles for this system works in tandem with a bunch of other magic systems based on Chinese folklore, because it's all one big, like, every single thing in Chinese folklore that I could find all put into like one culture of magic, essentially. And then every other culture group that I feel is distinct enough and big enough gets its own assortment of abilities and whatnot. So that's part of the reason why I really like this one, why I really like this book, although it does involve me doing a lot of world building whenever I introduce a new kind of magic. But yeah, that was my video about why I think Qi is bullshit. I think the way that people use it in modern Asian fantasy is really uncreative. And you know what? That's the conclusion here. That's the big fucking kahuna here. Is Asian fantasy needs to it's stale, all right? It's stale. It's all just xianxia. Like, xianxia is great and everything. Xianxia, wuxia, that's cool. That, yeah, but like, it's the same system every goddamn time, and they never branch out of that. Like, yeah, xianxia is great, but you know what? No, I don't want to read about the same exact world that you just named something different, and two hot guys fall in love in this one, which makes it different for some reason, but not really. But at the very least, you could make a better system. Yeah, so that was why Qi is bullshit. If you do any world building, go forth and use Qi better. Yeah, my name has been Alexander. It is way too late in the night for me to be recording this. And you should subscribe and do all the algorithm stuff. I have other videos and stuff for you to check out. It'd be pretty cool if you stuck around, as long as it's not as late for you as it is for me. And I will be back with more of whatever the fuck my niche is. Bye!